We're live.
Live
on the internet, Matt.
And now, your
From
world
North
famous
Carolina.
North Carolina.
How are you enjoying, before we start recording, how are you enjoying, we could talk about the pod too.
Yeah.
As I do this. You enjoying The Last Dance there?
Yeah. I mean, this is the NBA podcast, isn't it?
This is the only internet podcast that focuses on the NBA and preaching and the Revised Common Lectionary.
Part of me did think like, hey, maybe I could get this friend of mine that I grew up with. He's now like a NBA writer for the LA Times. And I was like, oh, maybe I should get him as a guest on the pod for our NBA segment.
Yes.
just for an NBA segment. It'll be great. Yeah, no, well, I'm roped into it by my brothers, especially, who are just insanely excited.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're like, I've developed a little bit more cynicism about Michael Jordan since I was a teenager, and my siblings have not developed any such complex emotions. So they're just unashamedly just so excited about it. So they roped me in, and it is like, yeah, it is good, and it does take you back. I mean,
Jerry Krause is a terrible person.
Oh yeah. Well, okay, I'm gonna get into that in a second. So first of all, you're gonna have to cut me off because I'll just start going. But like, these are my stuff. You know, like we all have our formative sports experiences. Like, I don't know if you're a Clemson fan. I don't know. Maybe you are. Maybe you're not. I don't know.
I could be.
But like
Horace Grant, Clemson alum.
Right.
Not getting getting a little short shrifted right now. I'm holding out hope episodes 3 and 4 will be a little more on how important Horace was. Dennis Rodman gets all the shine. Horace was the Dennis Rodman of the first 3. But
I know. When he had the goggles, which just made him really recognizable. Like when you're a kid, you just like, yep, I know that's Horace Grant. Yeah. So like, but these are my formative sports experiences. Like I was 13, 14, 15 during that second run. I remember hanging off the TV screen during the flu game. I remember, just all this as when I was a kid, and you just have like, you're just insane. So they're formative, right? Like I've become 13 again watching this stuff. I don't know what that loud noise is. It must be outside. Yeah, and then Jerry Krause is a terrible person. And the crazy thing is, like, I remember all of that at the time. Like nobody thought, it wasn't like there was some debate, like maybe we should break up this team. Like, they're kind of like hitting the end of their run. Like nobody was talking about that. Like everybody knew it was nuts. They weren't going to win forever, but nobody thought, oh yeah, you should definitely like hire Tim Floyd and like break up this team. Like what? Nobody was. The only person talking about that was Jerry Krause. We all knew he was the problem, but somehow this happened. Like my brothers and I were texting, like Reinsdorf deserves some of the blame here, though, right? Like he's like,
he does, yeah.
So
that last year, Michael Jordan was making $36 million, and Scottie Pippen was making $2 million. And that then in the documentary, Michael with a straight face can say that was selfish of Scottie to get the surgery.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's really selfish. Yeah.
It's insane to see, because the NBA is so different now.
Yeah.
That Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen hated the GM, and there was nothing they could do about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like today, Michael would simply go to Reinsdorf. I mean, Reinsdorf is a clown, right? And I say that as a White Sox fan as well, right? Like,
yeah.
He's not a rich doesn't make you smart. But that Michael wouldn't just simply go to the owner and say, it's either me or Krause. Because Kyrie Irving would not. Scottie Pippen played out that deal, right? He played out that deal. You hold out. Like,
I know.
Well, he didn't, Reinsdorf didn't renegotiate. Well, he would if you just didn't play for a year, right? Like, I mean, Michael would murder you probably in your sleep.
Yeah. No, it's insane. That doesn't, like, it definitely doesn't happen today. And can you even imagine like those players like
Imagine
like Jordan
LeBron.
and Pippen? Like, well, yeah.
If he thinks for half a second that he doesn't like the GM, they fire him and the coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Or he just goes to another team. Like, I can't believe they're all on the same team for like a full decade. Like, it's nuts.
That is the big difference. I think we saw the big difference between LeBron and Michael in the last episode when the Bulls trade Charles Oakley. That's the difference, right? LeBron would never have traded his best friend off the team. But Michael is a sociopath, right? Who cares only about winning. And so he's okay. He would cut his best friend, like
yeah. Well, and
he
I
remains his
wonder
best friend also.
and right. And this is me trying to be a sports talk radio guy, but like, is that partly because Jordan paved the way for this universe in which the players are bigger than the owners, right? Like, I mean, we still have labor and ownership issues, but like Jordan paved the way for this world in which LeBron can step in and he's now like the center of gravity, in a way that just didn't exist in like even if you had Magic and Bird, like that was still, that kind of reality was still coming to fruition,
It's just remarkable to think about how, while the dynamics have changed now, it's much more of a players, and there's some downsides as a fan to all the player movement and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't usually side with ownership and labor disputes.
Yeah.
But it's insane that Michael was so big. I mean, that last year, especially, like, he's the most famous person on earth. Like, not just famous, but like, he's so much bigger than LeBron is now. I mean, LeBron's a big deal, right? But like that trip to Paris was for like,
right.
It's and that he couldn't. That Reinsdorf,
right? Yeah, we like my brothers and I are texting like, why would you wouldn't you keep making money for like at least another couple of years off of that? Like, why would you think like, hey, you know what? Like Tim Floyd, like that's really how we could keep this thing going. Like, what? You could just keep printing money for like at least a few more years on that,
it
right?
Makes sense on no level, right? Competitively, you're not going to get like. I mean, everybody like how do. Perhaps you say with the benefit of knowing what happens, you can say, oh, clearly it wasn't going to work out, the rebuilding. But at the time, you would have.
Nobody thought, right? Nobody thought at the time. We were all like, Tim Floyd, who the fuck is this? Like, nobody thought that.
It's not like you're talking about Michael Jordan with the Wizards, right? Like, this is.
Yeah. Well, and then this thing came out. So, again, I'm just in this ongoing text chain. So Tim Floyd says then that in like 90, like during the 96 finals, they're in Seattle and he's walking around with Reinsdorf because Krause wants to blow it up. Like he wants to hire Tim Floyd and like get rid of Phil Jackson, like during the 96 finals. And Tim Floyd is like, you shouldn't do this. Like, this is a bad idea. Which I also think is like Tim Floyd telling that story now because he's like, do not rope me into this thing. Like, I do not want to be right. Like, I'm going to position myself as saving the franchise for another 2 years rather than the one who came in and messed it up.
I mean,
so I have no idea if that's true, but like, oh my gosh, yeah.
The Bulls were awful. Like I'm watching John Boyce's, I sent it to you, History of the Seattle Mariners, which is pretty good and hilarious. And like, I never really fully appreciated how real bad the Mariners have been. Like, there's no point to them existing, especially if you take out Ken Griffey.
Ichiro,
yeah. Well, we haven't got there yet,
Okay.
But the A Train's artist Gilmore is the only, maybe Bob Love, right? That's the best of the Bulls pre-Jordan. Like,
right.
And he turned it into the most important, like, valuable sports franchise in the world, perhaps at the time, right? Like, arguably more, like, globally more important than the Yankees in the late 90s. The Yankees hadn't done anything in a while.
Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah.
be loyal to Krause over Jordan? It makes
I don't know.
sense.
I don't
And you
know.
can see it. They don't matter. They haven't mattered since then, except for that one Derrick Rose year.
Yeah. They had a brief streak there. But yeah, it's nuts. But all the feels. I'm wearing my Bulls gear again.
Yeah.
My kids are asking me why I'm wearing the daddy cow all the time. It's great. It's great.
It's good. That's good. Should we record podcast?
I guess so.
We needed to get that out of our system. Otherwise,
you
it's going to be
should
an
put that
hour.
in.
Well, it's in the video. If you go to the video,
Good.
you get the pre-roll.
Good. And I mean, just so you know, these are only the first 2 hours of 10 episodes. 10. There's more to come.
Yeah. We have 8 more hours to
another month of this
to digest. I can't wait personally until we get to the baseball part. Because I tend to believe conspiracy Bill.
Yeah.
That he was.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that they'll cover.
David Stern encouraged. David Stern's dead now, so who knows?
I know. It's insane.
I would have Jerry Krause also dead. I kind of would enjoy him trying to defend himself in this.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Like everybody's like, we all knew Krause was a bad guy at the time, but it does also feel like, wow, like he's not here to defend himself, and everyone's just piling on.
And there's nobody to defend him. Nobody is there to defend. Even Reinsdorf isn't really defending. Like he's just.
Yeah, it is. Yep, pile on the dead guy. Good.
I'd be happy if I didn't get invited to a wedding. Dumbass.
Incredible.
Oh my God. The most sympathetic take I saw was that Phil Jackson wanted out as a way of understanding what was happening. But
that Phil Jackson wanted out.
Yeah.
Want to go to LA.
Or that he had, so Phil Jackson's father was a Pentecostal preacher in the Northwest, in case you're wondering. And he had a theory on like we do with pastoral effectiveness in a congregation, that you only had after 5 years, people would stop listening to you. So you had to move every 5 years. So more or less, Phil had a 7-ish year stint, so he did 7 years with the Bulls, 6 years with the Lakers, 6 years with the Knicks.
Yeah.
So nevertheless, if you're Krause, your job is to make this work because it's working real good. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to know. Gosh, it's hard to know what the real story is, but it's a thoroughly entertaining documentary, I gotta say. Can't turn away.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. Welcome to The Vinyl Preacher, your weekly award-winning live streaming now to YouTube podcast where we talk about the Bible, make a playlist, occasionally premiere a new song, and sometimes talk about the NBA. I'm Matt Cato, pastor at St. Mark's Lutheran Church in Los Angeles, California.
And I'm Zach Paris. I'm the pastor of Lutheran Campus Ministry at the University of Colorado Boulder, home of NBA professional Spencer Dinwiddie.
Yes. Oh, I have news about Spencer, but I don't know if I can share it on the pod. It was shared in public worship, so you could go back and watch St. Mark's worship service.
I'll dig.
Yeah, it's good. Zach, we just spent the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Was it 2:35 already? Talking about it. Talking about documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, there's so much good. We talked about this NBA Chicago Bulls documentary. We didn't even talk about the Coachella doc.
Coachella doc was pretty good.
That was good too. I didn't expect, it had some really interesting, here's this alt rock beginning, and then here's this EDM phase, and then this hip hop thing at the, I was like, oh, this is really,
it was really good.
It was different than I expected. It was stuff in there. Yeah. And then you saw Huell Hauser for a brief moment, and you did a deep dive. You found it.
That's right. Huell Hauser is featured. Huell Hauser, host of KCET, which is kind of PBS, kind of not. They left PBS or something, public TV in California. Huell Hauser, student body president at the University of Tennessee, and legend.
What?
Yeah. Him and Hannah are buds, and supporter of the libraries. His
Wow.
estate actually funded a library at Chatham University. But for many years hosted like a California history. I don't know. What would you call it?
Yeah.
It's called California's Gold. And he went around to all these weird places, and he's a hilarious character. In 2008, he visited Coachella. He got on stage with Dwight Yoakam because evidently Dwight Yoakam played at Coachella, not at Stagecoach. And parts of it hold up really well, and other parts do not, especially the part where he marvels at someone who is asleep on the ground in the EDM tent. What he says is asleep. And someone, maybe he should have had a producer that was not himself to say, hey, this is not, let's not put this on public TV.
Yeah. I haven't even finished it, but I was so thoroughly enjoying it. My favorite line so far, I mean, I texted you where he's like, this is a hot ticket, literally and figuratively. Just the way he says it. But then he also has this conversation shortly after that with this woman, and she's like, oh yeah, we come every year with our kids. And then he's like, was there some place that you meet them? And she's like, oh yeah, we meet here at the end of the night. And then he's like, well, I hope you find your kids. they're and then he realized, it's almost like he realizes it sounded bad, so he's like, I'm sure they're having a great time. But you're like, what? It's great. Go watch it.
You've been dancing all night. How do you do that?
It's incredible. Like if you were just like, I wouldn't have believed you that it existed until you said it to me. Like, because it just seems like
I couldn't either.
What if we did an SNL sketch with Hugh? Like, it's real. It's a real thing.
I do. I enjoyed that particular part of the documentary as well, Matt, because it had got me to dreaming about a day, not like these days where I'm stuck in the house with my small child, whose birthday is on Sunday. So we're gonna have to figure that out. She is excited. She's telling everyone that we are getting a jalapeno for her birthday. She means pinata. We're working on it.
Well, she's in that bilingual school, so
she's at the bilingual school, so they'll sort it out. Maestra Gabby. But above one day, Matt, where not only can perhaps you and I go to Coachella, but perhaps there's a day where we can take our gaggle of children together, because I think, one, it sounds fun, but two, it'd be a great way for me personally, to avoid having to spend as many chips on getting to go if it's a family thing, right?
Do you think that's gonna, like, do you want to go there and watch your child as well?
No. We're gonna no. When they're the appropriate age.
Okay.
The age of reason, is that the?
And we say we'll meet you here.
Thing? Yeah. And Yulhauser, the ghost of Yulhauser, says, "I'm sure you'll find them. It'll be good. I'm sure they're having a great time."
Good.
Mm-hmm. Matt, so I'm missing Coachella, obviously, so I decided to wear my Coachella shirt, my Coachella hat, preparing for this. But I got two little quick notes. I got to shout out number one fan of the podcast, number one listener of the podcast, Ben Adams. Number one, it was his birthday a couple days ago. But inspired by Ben, Matt, I've entered the sourdough universe, that sourdough life. I'm living it. It's like having another child, except this one you like and isn't nearly as annoying. Just kidding. But I made a loaf. It looked good. Did you see the picture of it, man?
Yeah, I'm a little jealous. How do you have time for this?
I don't. I mean, that's the punchline, probably.
But it was good. It turned out
nicely. I'm thinking about, students don't really listen to this. So I'm thinking about maybe doing some like baby bowls, boules, and doing some bread deliveries. Megan is creating like paintings, spoilers that students might be getting in the mail soon, like note cards and stuff, right? With some caring messages on it. So that might be happening. So shout out Ben and Bon Appetit have helped me to do this.
Well done, sir. No, I'm jealous. Not a lot of people know this because I don't often talk about it, but I actually was born in the Bay Area, and so sourdough, very, very near and dear to my heart. But I have not yet taken on the sourdough challenge.
The other important update to mention here, Matt, is that I am now fully living in the future. we have acquired and installed and successfully used a bidet here in our house. That's right. It is a reminder of our baptism every time we sit down. It's lovely and refreshing, Matt.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm into it. I mean, appropriately so. Like not, you know what I'm saying? It's It's good.
Good.
We should all bidet.
Good.
Should all bidet. Next time you come to the house, Matt, you can try
Okay.
it out.
I don't know. Maybe.
We're removing all the toilet paper, so we're gonna have to.
Oh God. Is that going to be like the ELCA Young Adult Challenge for next Lent? Like this year it was like single-use plastics.
Savannah.
Next year it's like, hey guys, give up toilet paper.
Yes, I think we can make this happen. I'm more excited. I mean,
It's so wasteful. It's just really wasteful.
It's
come on.
bad
Come
for
on,
the plumbing.
Savannah.
Right? It breaks down our utilities and makes us do infrastructure more quickly than we need to.
We're talking about this because it's Earth Day, and our Earth Day 50 challenge to you is give up toilet paper.
For a whole year. Just a year. Time is relative, as you're now experiencing. We are 14 Jeremy Baramies into the quarantine. Tomorrow's week 6, or this is the last day of week 5, week 6 for me. 6 weeks of
Wow.
living here. Restrictions are loosening here, Matt. Churches are starting to have some conversations about what the future is going to look like. Are you all having to have some of those conversations? Like the stay-at-home order from the governor has an end date now here in Colorado.
Yeah, yours is like the end of April, right?
Yeah.
Ours is still May 15th officially, but what I'm hearing even from our bishop is that like it's not like on the Sunday after the 15th we're all going to go back to church, right? Because all these, some might say not more than 10. You still might say vulnerable populations should be sheltering in place. Well, that's like half of the church crowd, right? So you don't want to be encouraging those folks to come out. So I think that next phase is going to be challenging, right? Like everybody says stay home. Okay, well, it's frustrating, but at least the instruction is clear. The summer is going to be a lot more complicated, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, you had a meeting with folks on campus there, the University of Southern California, about the future. Yeah, we don't know. I don't think anybody knows. That's the disconcerting part of things for us from a campus ministry perspective, is not knowing what, and not knowing when we're going to know.
Yeah,
I sound like I'm the author of the Gospel of John. So just hanging out until we can see more about what the future is going to look like.
Yeah.
I don't know how you go back into dorms though, Matt. That's if we're taking these like half steps and stuff, communal bathing.
Yeah.
I don't know how you half step into a dorm situation.
Yeah, they were suggesting. Yeah, I don't know. I know.
Do you know what would be nice? I think would be really helpful as we like try to take half steps back towards life, is an abundance of testing. That would be helpful. That's my reading between the lines. People come here, Matt, for multiple reasons. They want hot new music and music from the 80s, and they want hot gospel takes, and they want NBA talk, and they want amateur epidemiology. My reading between the tea leaves here, Matt, between the lines, is that the recent decision by like our governor to start slowly reopening things is an admission that we are not going to have enough tests within any sort of like realistic time to safely open things back up. So we're just going to have to like half step it forever. And
wow.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, California is a little. Yeah, this is so down a rabbit hole, but yeah, California, like what the announcement was that they're the first. We're the first. We I'm gonna claim it. Are the first state.
Claim it, man.
now be offering testing for those even without symptoms. So I think they're really pushing hard, and we're going to be a nation state. That's what our governor is saying. We're a nation state. So we're just.
I'm not opposed to a Western United States. We're not a part of your agreement, but I like that West Coast agreement.
So in the midst of this strange time, before we move to the text, can I make a confession?
Let's make
This is not the confessional, copyright Naughty Bolts Weber. This is the Vinyl Preacher.
We launched her podcast career, really.
We did when you asked her how that Portico life was going. That's good. Zach, I'm going to leave our beloved Revised Common Lectionary behind for a few weeks. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I don't like these texts.
This is why I think bad things happen, like plagues. And it's a sign of our unfaithfulness to the lectionary.
Here's my pitch for a future podcast sponsor, a Sanctified Art, who I believe you have some relation to some of the people involved in this.
Oh, yeah?
Your spouse does. You can ask her. So they do these.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're genetically connected. I mean, not me personally, but my household.
Yeah, see? So they do these lovely, like, visual arts, poetry, different things to accompany your texts and your seasons. And they often follow the lectionary, like if it's Lent or Advent. And then they offer, like, some special series. So we're using this series called Unraveled, Seeking God When Our Plans Fall Apart, just because I really love to have some art and devotional to lean into that I don't have to make up myself, especially in this crazy time. So that is just kind of fun for me. And the theme is just really, really nice. And some of the stories that they're using are pretty good. So that's what we're going to do, at least for the next couple of weeks during Easter. So, hey, you need a podcast to promote you. Sanctified Art. We're it. Check it out.
There you go.
But don't worry, I'll still talk about the texts. I'll still talk about the text with you. I just wanted to come clean.
Text
come clean. Well, I get to decide, right? So there's like 12, and then I can just kind of pick.
You've killed God again.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Installed Matt. He gets to decide now.
Well, I got to do Doubting Thomas is in here. So I used all the resources for that last week. I'm going to do Road to Emmaus anyway because I just love the story, right? There's enough there to work with. And then for this Sunday, I think I'm going to do Jeremiah 29, 1-7, which they say, encouraging the Israelites in exile to plant gardens and build houses when dreams unravel. And I'm going to do that because Jeremiah 29, 7 is one of my favorite verses to the Bible, one that I carried with me for a long time. So I feel like I've got a sermon already packed away for that one. So I'm excited. It's going to be good. Great. But I just love all the visual, like there's all kinds of visual art and stuff, and that just fires me up. So I recommend it. Even if you don't want to leave the lectionary behind, check out the resources for other seasons.
Cool. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not preaching.
You're not, although, I've seen people offering their digital services lately.
Yeah, you want to vinyl sermon, holler at me.
You've got a much wider sea. Just cast your net into this sea of the internet.
Dear internet, if you want me to talk at you, holler.
There you go. We've now promoted a Sanctified Art and Pastor Zach Paris coming to your church to preach for you.
Well, Matt, this time of quarantine is a good time to face our fears. Let's take a look at the text that you are afraid to preach on this week.
Let's do it. Where do you want to start?
You got to start with the gospel because the other texts are so.
I mean, Acts is all right. Like it's a nice little. It's like, but the thing is, like even within Acts, it's like an interlude, and it's like this nice little like interlude, but like it's not a story. But none of them are this year. Like they're all like preaching texts from Acts. There's plenty of stories in Acts. RCL.
It's literally called Acts.
Right.
It's a description of events.
Incredible. All right, John 10, 1-10.
See, we criticize the lectionary just as much as his narrative. Or
we do. So this is like Good Shepherd Sunday, right? So the psalm assigned is Psalm 23, and the gospel is going to talk about shepherds.
Many Good Shepherd Sundays are there? It feels like there's 87 of them. Like it gets talked about, like as if there's Good Shepherd Sunday is this one Sunday, but it feels like there's 43 of them.
Hey, here's a suggestion for you from Sierra and Maya, who just watched Toy Story 4 for the second time on Sunday, and who love Bo Peep, big fans of Bo Peep. And they said, "Oh, she's like a shepherd." So if you want a different image for the Good Shepherd this year, hey, maybe use Bo Peep, particularly the Toy Story 4 version where she becomes like an action hero. Try it. It'd be good.
Well, I've got a number of questions here, Matt. So here's the issue with calling it Good Shepherd Sunday, is it takes what we're about to learn as an incredibly complex and mixed metaphor and reduces it to the idea that Jesus is a good shepherd. But let's get into it and see whether that holds water or not. Jesus said, we're in the middle of John here, 10th chapter of John. Jesus said, very truly, verily, if you will. Why that's important, just a little note here, is that Jesus is putting his honor on the line. Right, so he's leveraging all of his honor to say this, and we're in this honor shame society, so that's a big deal. So we include that. Very truly, I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way is a thief and a bandit. Okay, we got a sheepfold, which is like a little paddock, little fenced-in area, stone gate, stone walls with a gate, and the only way into the sheepfold is through the gate and not climbing over. That makes you a thief and a bandit. Not a good thing. Okay. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. I'm assuming this is in addition to the sheep who also enter by the gate. But a non-sheep that enters through the gate is the shepherd. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him. All right, Matt, we're getting into some Ghostbusters territory. All right, there is no Dana, only Zool. Are you the keymaster or are you the gatekeeper? So we've got multiple characters here that we're gonna have to tease out, because we've got the gate, we got thieves and bandits, we've got shepherd of the sheep, and to this point we have the gatekeeper. Also, we have the sheep, which is important to keep track of. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, which I assume is the shepherd. The sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out all of his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger. This is a double negative, which is used to emphasize how true this is. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but you're not going to believe this. They did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, we'll get all the way through this. So again, Jesus said to them, verily, very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. Okay. So we had posited that Jesus was the shepherd or perhaps the gatekeeper, but no, Jesus claims for himself the gate itself. I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them, which doesn't seem true. I think the sheep have listened. I am the gate. Again, he is the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. Oh. Matt, you got a little red button you got to push.
Oh no. Do you know what this makes me think of?
What's that?
A quote from our dear professor, Dr. Craig Satterley, who I remember saying this little phrase: light mist in the pulpit, heavy fog in the pew. Light mist in the pulpit, heavy fog in the pew. Jesus might well take that advice. Light mist in the pulpit, heavy fog in the pew.
Matt, I think this might be another episode of Let's Talk About Sheep.
Let's do it.
Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About the Sheep. We need to talk about sheep facts, agrarian metaphors that are central to understanding the Bible, especially the New Testament. Matt, we all love sheep, right? There are lots of, we all wish we had a sheep during the quarantine. You can get milk off a sheep. Literally, shepherds were entitled to drink the milk of the sheep they were tending as part of their take. You can get clothing and wool. You know, if you can't make sourdough, Matt, you might use this quarantine time to learn how to weave and knit and create lots of textile fabrics and arts that you could make a profit off of. And if worse comes to worse, you can always eat a sheep just straight up for its meat, high source of protein. Lots of good uses for sheep. Here are the things I think you need to know about sheep to understand what's going on here this week. That is, historically, in the Bible, shepherds are good, right? Theologically, throughout the Hebrew scriptures, God is considered the shepherd of the people. They use that metaphor a lot. Moses is considered the shepherd. David is the shepherd. But it is important to note that by the time of Jesus, shepherds had lost some of their luster. Shepherds were not cool dudes, almost exclusively dudes, but they were pariahs, social outcasts. Because they were away from home at night, they had to stay with the sheep all the time. And because they were away from home at night, they could not protect their wives or protect the honor of their wives. And so they were dishonorable men and were also considered to be thieves, which is interesting because Jesus is contrasting a shepherd against a thief. They were considered to be thieves because they often would graze their flocks on other people's land. So not only is this thing complicated in just trying to figure out the physics of who's what and teasing out the metaphor, but one of the things to be aware of is that Jesus is redeeming, is comparing himself to a bad dude, to like people enjoyed it on the Instagram, are putting the home robbers, home burglars into the prayers of the people last week. It's the same kind of thing. I am Jesus. That's basically where this metaphor ends. And with that, I think that's the end of our episode.
Good app.
See you next time. And let's talk about the sheep.
Good app.
I could have used a little more animal husbandry talk, but maybe next time.
Incredible.
So Matt, Fog Myst, the video game Myst, that I played a lot of but never understood. Should the preacher try to take this thing apart? I feel like you'd have to spend a lot of time and energy taking it apart, right?
Yeah. Well, and especially right now, right, where your sermon ought to be short and to the point.
Yeah.
Which is what we've been talking about.
Explain this to people via
Zoom. I mean, I'm telling another option. You take this and you jump right over to the Psalm 23. You just start reciting Psalm 23. Everybody goes into a trance. It's lovely. You're good.
Your people like the Psalm 23? Is that a big part of your?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you not a fan?
No, it's just not like the way her colleagues and congregations talk, it's not as central to pastoral life of college students.
What would be, is there a text that would be that text for college students, right? So I know that there are a couple of things that I could use in a lot of settings, particularly with adults, where like Lord's Prayer, Psalm 23. I mean, almost like if you look at the Catechism, you're like, what is it? 10 Commandments, Lord's Prayer, Apostles' Creed. Like really, Psalm 23 could replace the 10 Commandments and everybody be fine with it. Is there a text like that for your ministry?
Probably. I mean, a part of it is not having the time to have it so embedded in you. Mm-hmm. And the lack of kind of catechetical instruction that my mom, had, where she went to catechism classes with notebooks and had tests and all that kind of stuff on on the 10 Commandments, on the Lord's Prayer, on the Apostles' Creed. Yep. But if it is, I'd go with like that St. Francis of Assisi quote is a money quote. You can like lean on that way, preach the gospel at all times and if necessary use words.
Nice.
Prayer of good courage works in our setting, is as close as we get to that. I mean, I think it's much more contextual than it is like just for young people. When I was at the University of Tennessee, whose most famous alum is clearly Huell Hauser, John Tiro, who was on the live stream and did great. It was really good stuff. You should check it out. Had written a lot of the liturgy stuff, and John had left. And so there had been this staff transition over a number of years. And so the student leadership, especially there, was looking for some stability, as all students are anyway. But when staff had turned over a bunch, the thing they had clung to for that stability was some of John's liturgy pieces. So if you're a senior and you've been through all of the normal sort of like uncertainties of college, and then the staff transition if you did not sing John Tiro's Lord's Prayer, you get murdered in the middle of the night, or just right at the, like Oscar Romero style, because it was so important to them. But it's hyper contextual, right? Like if you weren't a part of that community, you wouldn't know about them.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I get a sense that
yeah.
I get a sense that like the Mountain Vespers, Prayer of Good Courage gets a lot of, probably works that same way. It worked like that way for us for a little bit. We haven't used it as much lately, but I know that like up in the Twin Cities with Kate, it's a big part of their weekly worship. It is, they sing it together, I think via Zoom and stuff. So there are these little, there are certainly those things that exist, but they're more hyper contextual, kind of a summer campish sort of way.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe to build off of that a little bit, that sense of like, so everything around you is moving, and so you're looking for some stability, much like the earthquake we had in my neighborhood last night, where everything started shaking, and you're just grabbing to the wall for some stability. This might also be a time like that, right, where like everything around us is pretty unstable, as we started by talking about this podcast with. So it might be helpful to grab onto a familiar metaphor. In a different contextual time, it might be the time to like, hey, let's mess with this metaphor, because there's a lot of like complexity here that we could like start to really mess with the metaphor. But this might be a time to grab onto the familiar piece. You can challenge it a bit. Like I'm not saying don't preach the gospel, but know how powerful those metaphors can be even now, right? To say something like, if like, for example, if Psalm 23 or this image of the Lord is my shepherd is powerful for your community, or whatever that might be, to say, yes, even now in this time, the Lord is my shepherd in my home when I'm sheltering in place, or the Lord is my shepherd when I'm going out to do the essential service at the grocery store or in the hospital. That might be a powerful way to play with that image, right? The world around us is crazy enough at the moment that then let the image of stability go out into the craziness. Whereas if it was a different contextual time where the world was relatively stable, then you might have the image be unstable, right? Like I wonder if there's something to mess with there.
Yeah, how I would get there, and I may do it in my email to students this week, for us is to go through, to lean into the only thing that seems really clear to me out of this very crazy metaphor, or just mixed metaphor, is that Jesus is the gate. He says it twice, I am the gate, I am the gate. And so the only way into this community is through Jesus. And perhaps that first sounds kind of exclusionary to our ears, but it is intended as, I think John intends it as a very inclusionary thing, that this is compare and contrast. This is a contrasting thing, right? That what makes you a part of the community is Jesus, not the rules and regulations that the religious authorities of the day had come up with to decide who is inside and who is outside. Jesus is tearing down those walls here. And this is, perhaps not a sacred text, but a thing that's the heart of our life as a community, is that students have probably heard me talk a number of times about the kind of theology behind our weekly gathering, which is to say that on campus, that students are striving or searching for belonging, for a sense of belonging. And that most of the ways we've come up with to know that we belong is that you have to prove it somehow. Right? That if you're going to be on an MBA podcast, you got to be able to know where Horace Grant went to college. You got to have an opinion on Bill Cartwright. You got to do all those things. Perhaps these days, like in my neighborhood, one of the things that my wife and I have enjoyed doing is judging the hell out of people who walk past our house. Like, I don't think they're living together. They're walking too close. He's not wearing a mask. He should be wearing a mask, to prove he's a good person and a bad person, right? And that the goal of our community in particular, and the goal of the Christian community, is this revolutionary thing that says we belong first, because Jesus is the one who does the belonging piece. Jesus is the one who makes us to belong. And so it's not our job to either prove ourselves or to vet people to know that they belong. And so maybe this is a helpful, I'm sure this sermon's been preached a million times, when people are in this uncertainty and everything's changing. You're not in the church building and all that kind of stuff. One of the realities of my life with a 3-year-old has been virtual church is not a thing that we can really do because we don't have the attention span for it, right? And so perhaps it's a word of grace to say, it's not our inability to do Compline every night that makes us outsiders, but it's the promise that Jesus is the one who makes us insiders. And that I think can connect to the Acts text really well, where you get the nice line, if they held all things in common, because that's that vision of what it looks like in this community where Jesus makes us to belong.
Amen. And I like it.
Boom. I found good news.
Way to go.
Yeah, that's what I got, man.
What are you listening to?
Matt, it's been 10 years. Well, I want to start with saying this. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows that it's 6 things, really, right? It's epidemiology, it's NBA Jam, it is music, gospel, local weather, and it's a Fiona Apple fan podcast.
Look, I also wrote down Fiona Apple. Oh, like right there.
I loved Fiona Apple when she was big, when I was like in middle school. She kind of fell off the radar, but then came back on for me through 826 LA with that Freaking Love album, where she recorded the first track, and it's really good. Like
it's good.
It's really good. And I knew the new album was coming out, but then I was a little surprised, that Pitchfork gave it its first like perfect 10 in 10 years since Kanye's Dark Twisted Fantasy. And this album is perfect for this week, Matt. I think if you're going to preach on the gospel, on the lectionary, because for me, I think this is Jesus tearing down the walls, right? And this album that is a perfect 10, according to Pitchfork, 4.5 stars on Rolling Stone, is called Fetch the Bolt Cutters. And you should read the review on Pitchfork, because it's a really good review as well. Jen Pelly wrote it. I'm going to quote it, just a hair of it. It happens to most of us at an early age, the realization that life will not follow a straight path towards fulfillment. Instead, life spirals. The game is rigged, power corrupts, and society is, in a word, bullshit. Did it teach you to bury your pain, to let it calcify, to build a gate around your heart that quiets the reaches of your one and only voice? Well, then fetch the bolt cutters. Right? That was a great for opening paragraph to the review, and that's what the song is about. Fetch the bolt cutters. It's time to cut those chains off of our hearts, in terms of who we let in, but also in terms of letting ourselves out, which is certainly Fiona's perspective. There's another great track. I don't want to step all over it. I'll comment on yours if you talk about Fiona. But Under the Table is a good one, where she's basically like at a dinner party she didn't want to go to, and she's like, I don't care how many times you kick me, I'm not going to be quiet. Under the Table. It's really good. New album also coming from the Magnetic Fields. I think I put it on there a couple weeks ago. But this is about belonging, and their most recent single that they dropped is called I Want to Join a Biker Gang, which is just as fun and delightful and playful and serious as all Magnetic Field stuff is. We're a little art housey here. But last, Matt, from Mount Joy, I'm putting Sheep on to the playlist, which is a song I always forget about because there's blood on the streets of Baltimore. Kids are getting ready for a long war. Maybe I was born in the wrong skin, but those sheep are rolling in the mud again. It's a very catchy song, very popular.
Awesome. Well done. Way to steal. Fiona Apple. What a great, that moment when you come up with a good phrase, like fetch the bolt cutters. I mean,
right? There are like 5 dogs who are listed in the credits on the album.
That's amazing. I'm only starting to dive into the fullness of the album, which is really good. But
it's not like an easy listen. Like you put it on and you're like, oh, this is a great album. Like,
there's a lot going on. But you're right. That title track is perfect for it this week. It's perfect for this week. But go check it out, dear people of God. What else am I going to put in there? Song I'm going to listen to, Mandolin Orange, Belly of the Beast. I'm going to throw that on there as we think about the thieves. Thieves and Bandits. I can't remember exactly why I want to put that on there. There's stuff about monsters, but really I just like the way it sounds. And then we've been listening to Willie Nelson because W was the letter of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And then he was on Fallon the other night doing with his sons the song Hello Walls, which is pretty hilariously perfect for this time. How'd things go for Hello Windows? How'd things go for you today? Just a perfect song for Shelter in Place. Willie Nelson, Hello Walls, Hello Gates. It still fits. It's good stuff. A lot of good music for your quarantine playlist.
You see Randy Newman's single love song that he wrote?
No.
It's called Stay Away From Me. It's pretty good. Oh, we did it, Matt. Squeeze some good news out of this gospel. Lengthy NBA conversation in bidet talk. So,
well, there's only another month of this documentary, so you may get more.
We gotta get the LA Times dude on.
It's gonna be great. Good stuff. It's been real.
Real vinyl.
That's a black. Oh, black, like the other one's good.
We've stopped recording.
Oh, you want to leave it there? Because look, there's